Welcome to the KTPF Reload Show. In case you're wondering what the Reload Show is about, if you haven't heard previous shows, these are the interviews that were conducted by good friends of mine, Steve and Sue Taggart, in the days of the KTPF radio show. Their own radio show ran for just over 4 years, broadcasting every week for over 3 hours. I joined them in the last 18 months of the show's run, but eventually the guys felt they'd just about had enough. It was a monumental effort to keep broadcasting every week for 3 hours. It was a wonderful show, but unfortunately they're no longer involved, and the shows have just sort of sat in the archives, so I thought it would be nice to bring them back to life and bring you the interviews that the guys conducted over those 4 years. They include some of the most interesting people within the world of the paranormal, and some not so well known, but still, nevertheless still very interesting. We even have 1 or 2 rather unusual shows, including a live seance and other things along those lines. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed tonight's show, and this is the KTPF Reload Show. Enjoy.
They've landed.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Yeah, good evening everybody, and welcome to the KTPF Community
Talk radio.
Yeah, it's Talk Radio Show tonight, and for those of you who've never been listening to the show before, my name's Suzanne.
And I'm Steve. And
we're here to try and talk everything paranormal, cryptozoology, and strange phenomena to you all. Phenomenon. Later on about we're going to be speaking to Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I think that's how you pronounce it, or Guiley. She's a leading expert on the paranormal and supernatural. She conducts original field investigations of haunted and mysterious sites, and she's written more than 45 books, including 9 encyclopedias, and hundreds of articles in print on a wide range of paranormal, spiritual and mystical topics, and she possesses an exceptional knowledge of the field. And she's written a book about the jinn, and she feels as though that the jinn is connected to everything and anything paranormal, to be honest with you. And we're going to get her take on it and find out just what she believes is the jinn. Is our guest for tonight from America, Miss Rosemary Guiley. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Hello.
Hi there. Is this Suzanne?
Hi, Rosemary. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Oh, good. Can you please tell the people in the chat room your name? I hope I haven't got it wrong. Can you pronounce it for us, please?
It's Guiley. Rosemary Ellen Guiley.
Right, okay. Welcome to the show. First of all, can you tell us a bit about yourself, Rosemary?
Yes, I'm a paranormal researcher and investigator and author. I've been working full-time in the field for 30 years now. And I started out with an interest in ghost hunting. In fact, I'm a lifetime member of the Ghost Club of London. I have a lot of friends in that community. And my paranormal interest just spread very far and wide, to the point where I've done over 50 books now on everything A to Z, literally, angels to zombies and everything in between. I keep track of UFOs, mysterious creatures, angels, fairies, mystical experiences, demons, all kinds of things paranormal. They all relate together. And I teach classes, give lectures, and I'm always investigating. The book, The Jinn Connection, and I believe we're going to be talking more about the jinn this evening. That was an outgrowth of a lot of my research into haunting cases that seem to be very difficult to deal with. What I call persistent negative hauntings that never seemed to be able to resolve, no matter what solutions were applied. And I had been interested in the jinn for quite a long time. I had read about them for years, of course. And when I realized that they are participating in all of our paranormal experiences, including our hauntings, a lot of things started to make sense. So that's really where I'm at today, is looking for more evidence of their involvement with us and what they're doing and why.
Right, well, just to give people an idea of who you are or what you've been, you've past positions are held. You were a columnist for Tax Para magazine.
I'm a former columnist, yes. For some time, I did a column for the official magazine of the Ghost Hunters show, and I'm also a consulting editor of Fate magazine. I've had positions on the board in the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and for an organization that's now called, it's had different names in the past, it's now called the Academy of Consciousness Studies, and that looks into a lot of metaphysical areas. So I've been active in on many fronts. I study near-death experiences and the dreams, as I mentioned. Dreams are a very important gateway into the unknown. I consult with a lot of paranormal groups. I don't have a group. I like to be independent. But I consult with people literally all over the world on their cases and experiences.
So this jinn, now we've heard a bit about the jinn. I'll hand it over to Steve, and he can, because he's learnt more about this than I have, to be honest with you.
Well, to be honest, we used to go for a nice curry, and one of the waiters used to try and teach us about their side of things. And he was telling us that the jinn are made of pure fire, and that originally there was 12 of the jinn that actually stayed and studied under Muhammad, and the rest obviously went their own way. But he was telling us that there's no such thing as ghost. It's the jinn that's making us think who we're seeing is relatives and things.
Is this the theory that you've got?
There are variations of that same theory, yes. The theories are essentially the same, and sometimes the details are a bit different. But the Quran explains the jinn as being made of smokeless fire, and that they existed with the angels. They weren't the equivalent of angels, but they had access to heaven, and they trafficked with the angels. And when the story that's told in the Quran is that when God decided to make human beings, he instructed the angels to bow down before Adam. But Iblis, who was the leader of the jinn and who was in heaven with the angels, refused because he felt that human beings were inferior to the jinn. And so the jinn then were cast out. And they were granted until Judgment Day to make their case. And so the evil ones have followed Iblis and are dedicated to tormenting and harassing human beings. There are good jinn. Just like human beings, the jinn have a variety of dispositions and temperaments and intentions, and some of them convert to the faith, some of them follow other faiths, some of them have no faith. The Quran is preached to them as well as to human beings. I do believe that they are players, significant players, in all of our entity contact experiences, from ghosts to fairies to unknown entities to demons to extraterrestrials. They are masterful shapeshifters. In fact, nobody really knows what the true form of the jinn is. How do you embody smokeless fire? And in the pre-Quranic legends about the jinn, before Islam came into being, they were said to be made out of the wind. Again, something very formless, but they've always been known for their shape-shifting ability and for their hostility toward human beings. It seems that the ones who are engaging with us and interacting with us are the hostile ones. And they have found many ways to create problems for us. So I have indeed revised my own feelings about ghosts over the years, that most of what we call hauntings, if the phenomena aren't interactive, that is, the footsteps that are always in the same corridor, the cold spot in the room, the sounds that are always in the same part of the house, these are probably due to residues that are left behind. But when we have something more interactive, a spirit who seems to watch us and actively look for ways to get our attention, that's probably something else. And the jinn can take on the guise of human ghosts, make us think that we're dealing with something else, when in fact we're really dealing with them.
So what made you start all this? I may ask, are you a Muslim yourself?
I'm not. I was raised a Methodist. In the course of my work, I have always studied cross-cultural and cross-religious inquiries, because all of these paths address the same things from different perspectives. And we find the same stories, the same legends, and similar perspectives with of course, the added perspective of different, each unique religion and even tradition, spiritual tradition. I've always been interested in the paranormal since I was a little kid, and members of my family, including myself, had experiences. I believe that all people do, and especially children do. It's not unusual for children to have invisible playmates, to occasionally see dead family members, to have other kinds of experiences. For many adults, many people, as we become adults, these experiences fade into the background. And for me, they remained in the foreground, and I was intensely curious about them. So I also have a journalistic background, and I'm naturally curious about everything. So I've always looked at a big picture. It's been evident to me from the beginning of my research that all of these things are interconnected in strange ways, and we need to pull back and see a big picture if we're going to have any hope of understanding it at all. So I've never gone down the path of just choosing to specialize in any one area. But I became acquainted with the jinn actually through magic, and I was researching magic and witchcraft and sorcery for a book in the 1980s, and started reading about the jinn. There really wasn't much published about them for an English-speaking market back then. And I didn't even realize until that time that these were the beings responsible for our concepts of the genie in the bottle. That genie is a derivative of, actually a corruption of the name jinn, which is spelled both D-J-I-N-N and J-I-N-N, and it means the hidden ones. And of course, we're all familiar in the West with the folk tales of the genie in the bottle. And curiously, these genies are often portrayed in our culture through our fiction and our film and television as kind of silly beings, something that you couldn't possibly think were real. They come out of a bottle and supposedly grant wishes and usually wreak havoc in some way. But they are very real. The entity behind those legends is very real and capable of interacting with us in supernatural ways, oftentimes well below our radar. We don't really know what we're dealing with. If we think it's anything supernatural at all, we look for explanations that are more familiar to us: the ghost, the fairy, the demon.
Now, being paranormal investigators ourselves, we go to alleged haunted places, and obviously they're supposed to be haunted by the people that frequented there or lived there or anything like that. So what you're saying is that these jinn that are actually fooling us. We're not getting, say, for instance, I don't know, Radcliffe from Old Saw Hall. We're getting somebody that's fooling us.
It might very well be the case, and sometimes it's difficult to know exactly what you're dealing with until you've had a chance to observe it for a while. I've been specializing in these negative cases now for some time, but I've done quite a bit of paranormal investigations of all kinds, and I think that we're dealing with combinations of things. There's residues left by the dead. There are earthbound souls, for example, that still linger. And there are spirits, and spirits who want to fool us by acting like ghosts. And we also have thought forms that we're dealing with, which can acquire personalities and animation. And of course, investigators energize those things as well. You know, when we go in and investigate, we're putting energy into an environment that is capable of responding back.
Now, in your book, obviously, the title of your book is The Jinn Connection, the hidden links between the jinn, shadow people, ETs, Nephilim, archons, reptilians, and other entities. Now, when it comes to ETs and extraterrestrials, how does that go about when you hear about alien abductions and stuff like that?
I discovered a very disturbing link between the jinn and ET abductions a few years ago. I started researching a phenomenon called shadow people, and you probably run into them too. These are dark forms that have the shape of a human, but they're solid black. And they often look like tall men wearing coats and hats.
Yeah.
They're usually bedroom visitors, but they also lurk around in haunted places too. And they have the capability of absolutely terrifying people. They seem to throw off this very malevolent energy. Well, in 2004, I had received quite a few reports of these entities and people wanting to know what they were. So I decided to put together a formal research and investigation project to interview a lot of people and collect a lot of data. People were making the automatic assumption that these things were likely to be demons, and yet their behavior pattern, their modus operandi, didn't really strike me as demonic. And so shadow people led me to the abducting ETs. And I concluded that shadow people were a form taken by the jinn, and that suits their the kinds of personalities we're dealing with. It suits their modus operandi, and enables them to remain hidden. They're just totally black. You don't know what they are, and they don't communicate very often as well. Aside from just seeming to watch people, they do attack people. They will take off the life force. People feel that they're having their life force, literally sucked off them. Sometimes rarely there would be sexual encounters, but oftentimes very aggressive physical assaults. I discovered that, and this was through voluntary description. People would send me their descriptions, and I started noticing that a lot of these experiencers were also ET abductees, more than I might expect from just, some people have a variety of experiences. They're just kind of psychically open. But this struck me as a very odd connection, and it kept repeating. So I broadened out my research project and looked more deeply into that, both by interviewing people and by researching the abduction literature. and I discovered that there's a very obvious link between shadow people and ET abductions. That many, but not all, abductees are visited first by shadow people before they have abductions. It's not in the same episode, but it seemed like the shadow people are forewarners or precursors to the abduction experience. So, of course, that link then made me wonder, are the jinn actively involved in other aspects of the abduction phenomenon as well? Well, whenever you're dealing with these entities and subjective experiences, you have only the reports of eyewitnesses and experiencers to go on. You know, this is a very murky area. And I then studied hundreds and hundreds of accounts looking for patterns, and could I find the same descriptions or some telltale evidence of something that would give the jinn away. And in the jinn connection, I build that case where I found quite a bit of evidence for the presence of the jinn in the abduction literature, going back to cases from the 1950s. But the thing is that Westerners, and including Western ufologists, we're not thinking about the jinn. We don't even think to factor them into the equation, because most of us don't even know who they are. So how are you going to wonder whether or not they're involved if you don't realize who they are and how they can stay hidden? And there is quite a bit of evidence for the presence of the jinn in the abduction phenomenon. Whether or not they account for all abductions, or they're working in concert with other beings doing these, or even working against them with their own agendas in mind, nobody really knows yet. We don't even know what the full ramifications are of the abduction phenomenon, except for what experiencers tell us about being used to create hybrids.
Right. We've got a question for you in the chat room. Ghost Rider would like to know what your views are on premonitions. Just to expand that, do you feel as though people like mediums and psychics, when they're getting messages, they're being fooled as well?
It's a hazard, and that hazard has been acknowledged, for a very long time. And people develop different ways of validating their messages, their bona fides and whatnot. I really do strongly believe that we get genuine communications. Otherwise, we would have to discard everything, and that literally would paralyze us from pursuing any meaningful research and inquiry into the spirit world. That would be a serious mistake. But we do have masqueraders and entities who deceive us. Sooner or later, those deceptions come out, and I think that people who deal regularly in spirit communications learn how to discern the genuine from the fraudulent. They often give themselves away through the kinds of things they say, through communication that gradually deteriorates over time or becomes manipulative. But unfortunately, we have no universal guidelines and no universal ground rules in this area.
Right, Steve, you got some questions?
Yeah, two for you, really. First of all, I'd like to say it's something that's becoming very, very popular, being spotted, are what people call black-eyed people, black-eyed children. Do you think there's a connection there?
I do. The black-eyed children. We've been hearing more and more of these entities since, about the 1980s. Excuse me. And I have gotten reports of them myself, and I've also spoken at length with David Weatherly, who lives in the Southwest. He's out in Arizona, and he's written really the only definitive book to date on the subject, called Black-Eyed Children. And we've compared notes. I believe that the black-eyed children are yet another form taken by jinn. And they seem to have multiple purposes in interacting with us. Some of them seem to want to just mess around with us, play tricks on us, aggravate us, scare us. It's almost for their own entertainment and amusement. Others seem to be more focused in their hostility. They are interested in harming human beings and in getting something off of us, like the life force. Others want to have romantic relationships with us. And some are more predatory. So, here again, just like human beings, there are different agendas and purposes going on. The black-eyed children seems to be a way for the jinn to harass, terrorize, and trick people. And many of the people who've had contact with these forms also suffer health-wise. They feel a wasting away of health. They suffer some kind of injuries where contact has been made. Sometimes their lives start falling apart. These are patterns that also happen in jinn cases and also in shadow people cases. So it seems to be just another way to distract us. We tend to think that all of these different forms that we see are different entities. Many of them may be just different shape-shifted versions of a single type of entity. The jinn would be capable of doing that.
Okay.
Okay. The other one is, while you were writing your book on the jinn, did you ever get the feeling that you were being dictated to as to what to put in it?
I never felt dictated, but I definitely had plenty of company while I was working on the book, and I had lots of problems. I had visitations, I had bedroom, the shadow people visitations. I had reports, things that would go missing, things that would break down. In general, over the course of my career, doing my work, I have felt very protected and guided by spiritual forces. Whenever you do this kind of work, you're going to attract the attention of negative entities as well as the benevolent ones. That's just a given. And at varying points, sometimes depending on the nature of the work you're doing, you have to engage with them. They will interfere in that. So I have had interferences. I do feel that I've been guided to look into certain areas, to meet people, to come across sources and other things that illuminate the research, especially in this area. It's very important for us to know who all the players are out there in the spirit world that we're dealing with, from the good to the bad. And many of these beings have ways of manipulating us without us really knowing it, and we need to know that too.
Yeah. Also, I suppose the big question is, do you have any solid evidence that the jinn are actually doing this?
As always in the paranormal and dealings with the spirit world, the hard evidence is very hard to come by. And this is why scientists very easily dismiss all of this, because, you can't get somebody like the jinn to materialize in front of you and sit down and give you an interview and be videotaped and thumbprinted, so to speak.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, we all wish. So have to deal with is a body of evidence in support of something. It's very soft evidence. And people in parapsychology have to deal with this all the time. Evidence in support of something. And even the hard evidence that's accumulated, such as in cases of mediumship and reports and things like that, it's still argued and refuted by the scientific establishment. So what I do in my work, because for me the paranormal exists, it's existed since childhood, and so I'm really not trying to prove the paranormal, but what I do look at is the how and the why behind our experiences. What are the experiences that human beings share as common ground? And what is the documentation for those experiences throughout history, through our mythology, our folklore, case recordings, the written and oral evidence? And I look for patterns in those experiences. So when you can accumulate hundreds and hundreds of descriptions and find patterns that reach over time, that reach around the globe among people who've never spoken to each other or met or may not even know about such things in general, and the same things show up, it's very compelling to me that that this is evidence of some concrete interaction with the spirit world. So that really is the basis for all of these fields, for the paranormal, for the ghost hunting community, for the ufology community, for mysterious creatures, the cryptids researchers, even people who are on the more metaphysical side of things with the near-death experiences, mediumship and channeling. All of these things, really, from a scientific perspective, don't have a leg to stand on. Yet, clearly, human beings have been involved in these experiences for as long as we've had recorded history. So what I look for is the evidence that links all of this together. And at the very least, it helps people understand their experiences better, helps them deal with the problematic side of things. And hopefully we're all contributing knowledge and insight into these experiences that can help explain them. And maybe someday we will have that bridge between the subjective and the scientific, that we can make the two sides come together better.
Now, apart from the obvious, the jinn and the shadow people, you also mentioned Nephilims and Archons. For our guests, could you explain what they actually are?
Yes, the Nephilim were the half human, half entity hybrids, referenced very briefly in the Bible, but written about extensively in ex-canonical works. In Genesis, there is a very short reference to the sons of God, or the Watchers, who were assigned to watch over humanity and decided that human women looked pretty good, and they left their posts and cohabited with women and created these monstrous offspring called the Nephilim. The Nephilim were giants. They would have been, by our standards, over 37 feet high. And they were very corrupt. They were cannibalistic. They were flesh eaters. They were blood drinkers, and they spread lawlessness around the land. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us all of that, but the book of Enoch does. And the book of Enoch goes into quite a bit of detail about these watchers, who are sometimes described as angels. About 200 of them leave their watch posts and start all of this up. Well, the angels become very upset with this corruption, and they go to God and tell him what's going on, and he gets upset about this too. and decides to wipe everything out in the flood. And so that is the reason why we had the flood. But whether or not all of these Nephilim were destroyed is a matter of uncertainty, because there were subsequent references to giants in other books of the Bible. Well, one of the things that I argue in the jinn connection is, if the jinn have been the hidden ones interacting with us, and they're interacting with us now, they've probably been doing it all along in hidden ways. And we need to reevaluate all of our stories about our involvement with ancient aliens and ancient beings and gods to look for the trademarks of the jinn. The actions of the Watchers are the sons of God. And by the way, the jinn were called God's other people as well. Just like the fairies are called God's other people. The actions of leaving their posts and cohabiting with human women would be very characteristic of the jinn. And the jinn have long been known as great deal makers. So in exchange for teaching the forbidden arts to humanity, they get sex. And these offspring, which have jinn characteristics, then result. Now, giants over 37 feet tall would seem to be an impossibility given the gravity of the planet. But if they were not completely physical, not completely material, as jinn would be, they could be any size they wanted to be. So I think it's very plausible that the Nephilim were half jinn and half human. The archons who come out of Gnosticism were false creator gods who also wanted to manipulate human beings for their own purposes. This is a characteristic that we find through jinn lore over and over again, the manipulation of human beings for their own purposes. And whether that purpose is amusement or the life force or blood sacrifice, it's always to the gain of the jinn and the loss of humanity. So these scenarios crop up over and over again in almost all of our dealings with powerful beings. Might they be jinn?
Right, okay. And so what do we need to know about these, and how should we respond?
Right now we have more questions than answers, and one of my purposes in writing the jinn connection, and that was preceded by the Vengeful Jinn a couple of years ago, which was just a basic introduction to jinn, is to educate people that these are real entities who are involved with us in many ways, and we need to know more about them and not just dismiss them as superstition. In many parts of the world, especially the Middle Eastern world, the jinn are assumed to be players in the landscape. They're involved in all kinds of human affairs, for better or for worse. And we can't dismiss this as superstition. We have to realize that this is happening right in our own backyard.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been researching at length is how do we confront this and combat it? People have varying degrees of trouble, from mild annoyances to serious disruptions of life and even life-threatening situations. I haven't yet found a single remedy that works in all cases all the time. There are lots of remedies that work in certain cases some of the time, but not all of the time. And that's very frustrating for a lot of people to deal with. I include a lot of those in the jinn connection. There's a chapter I have called Battle or Interdimensional Martial Arts, where I discuss some of the things that have worked for other people. They seem to be able to have the upper hand on us. And even if we gain the upper hand, at some point they can come back and sees the advantage again. Whether or not that's permanently the case, I would like to not think so, that we are sovereign in our own reality in the physical world. And at the very least, we might have to learn how to coexist with some of these entities who seem to have a very firm foothold in our landscape. But there's no good solutions right now, no good permanent solutions.
Right, okay. I've just been looking at your I think it's your website on the Jinn Universe, and you've covered quite a few topics there, haven't you, with your publications? Ghost hauntings and spirit communication, talking to the dead, Ouija boards, the witches, Book of the Dead, just not multi-dimensional portals. You know, how did you get into this writing? To get into all this, covering quite a vast subject?
It is, and it's ever expanding in new directions, and it probably stems from my very early childhood interests and experiences, and my curiosity about wanting to know about everything as much as possible. And also, as I pursued my research and followed all of the research leads, you wind up realizing how interconnected things are, and that if you look in one particular direction, then, well, you've got to consider something that's related to it. I believe that the jinn, as well as other entities that we encounter, they come and go in our reality through multidimensional portals. These are thin spots between our dimension and parallel dimensions that all really have a connection to the earth. They're land-based. They're tied to the earth. And there are these entities living in these other dimensions that, because of the difference in vibrational qualities of these dimensions, we don't see them or interact with them on an ongoing basis, but we have these kind of openings and bleed-throughs. They seem to be able to come into our world more than we go into theirs at will, and I'm not sure why that is. I do have two websites, and one is visionaryliving.com. That's my main website, and a lot of the topics that I write on are on that website. I have quite a library of articles. And if anyone is interested in subscribing to my newsletter, I encourage that too, because I put my latest material in the newsletter. And it comes out once a month, and it's delivered via email. It's complimentary. The other website that you mentioned, the Jinn Universe, and that's DJINNuniverse.com, I set up 2 years ago as an educational website to publish and have discussions of things about the jinn. And I have collected hundreds of testimonials and stories contributed from around the world from people who've had jinn encounters. It's quite eye-opening and even hair-raising, some of these stories. And people have weighed in with their metaphysical views, their religious views. Some of the experiences, a small minority of them, are benign or benevolent. Most of them are negative, and some of them are quite terrifying. So I think it's a good place to go. It's a real eye-opener to, just get the gist of what the jinn are and what they're doing with people.
Yeah, and you've done got a lot of documentaries and docudramas and TV shows as well, or you've worked on them, including Supernatural.
Yes, I did. It was called The Extras for season 4 of Supernatural, which is a fabulous show, and they get into all these topics as well.
Yeah.
And the extras on the DVD set was a scenario built like Dante's Inferno and Paradiso, that his his journeys through heaven and hell and purgatorio. And they assembled some experts like me to talk about themes on the show and their basis in mythology and supernatural reality. Quite well done.
Yeah, definitely. You've definitely covered quite a lot in when did you start doing this writing and getting into it? There's definitely a lot there.
I started my writing career full-time 30 years ago.
Wow. You've done more than 50 books.
More than 50 books.
Yeah.
And
translated 15 languages. You've been full-time since 83. You've done encyclopedias. It's wow. It's a lot.
Is writing something that comes easy to you?
Did you get that?
I didn't.
Is writing something that comes easy for you?
Oh, it is indeed. In fact, I often joke that I came out of the womb with a pencil in my hand. And I've been writing ever since I can remember. And I really enjoy writing. I feel very blessed, actually, to work full-time in subjects that really interest me, intrigue me, and enable me to pursue my art, which is writing. And so in spite of the harrowing circumstances I find myself in sometimes, it's been quite a ride. Never a dull day, that's for sure.
So is this your full-time thing, or is this something that you actually do apart from this?
It is my full-time work. I have a balance of research and writing, and I'm on the road a lot. I travel to give lectures and presentations. I maintain media appearances, a lot of radio shows, and mixed in with television and documentaries. So all of those things together, and then I'm constantly interviewing people, and I also consult with a lot of people. People, they have problems. They sometimes they just want to talk to someone who understands what they're going through, so they feel that they're not crazy. This is a very important aspect of all of this, that our very real engagements with the spirit world can be quite destabilizing and upsetting to people. And if they have no way of talking about those experiences and being taken seriously, then it actually adds to the whole burden. It adds to the stress. So I'm often consulting with people about their experiences and, looking for solutions. I consult with a lot of investigation teams on their cases. I conduct a lot of investigations myself, and some of them are long-term. They span years. I've had the good fortune of being able to follow some cases for a long period of time. And as you know from investigating yourself, sometimes you only have one or two opportunities to do an investigation.
So if anyone wanted to buy your books from your website, obviously being in England, is there a Kindle version?
Yes, many of my books are available on Kindle, and the Gin Connection is available by Kindle. And if people order hard print, I send them out autographed, and I do ship all over the world.
Right. Okay. So if anyone's interested in them, just go to visionaryliving.com. I've put the website on the chat room. If you want to go and have a look, there's quite a few books there to choose from. So what's next for Rosemary? Have you got a book pending or thinking of starting at the moment?
I do. In fact, I'm usually working on several projects at once. This seems to be the nature of my research, probably because all things are interrelated and folded together. I'm working on another book about the jinn, and this one will focus more on how they they're engaged with people in where they seem to haunt places. Mm-hmm. I'm working on interdimensional portals and how the planet has many of these doorways and what those doorways are like. I have a book on that I'm working on afterlife communications, especially through dreams. Mm-hmm. I've been interested in psychic dreaming since I was very small. So those and some other projects. I have a Ghosts and Hauntings book that I'm doing, and a lot of things going on right now. In fact, I could use a few doppelgangers.
And just out of curiosity, do you feel sensitive yourself?
Yes. I never considered myself to be, a wonderkind by any means. Mm-hmm. But like most children, I had visionary and psychic experiences. I think that this is part of childhood in general. In my family on my mother's side, my grandmother had psychic sensitivity. My mother did. She had a variety of encounters with good and bad kinds of beings. She had precognitive dreaming. And my sister has psychic sensitivity as well. So I think those things added to my interest in these areas. When you're small, when you're a kid and you have these experiences, you think everybody does. And as I got older, I realized everybody doesn't. And not only that, the people who do, their experiences are quite varied and different. So that has been a major factor in my research. As I got older then, I wanted to learn more about that and also how to increase it. Instead of being a passive recipient of premonitions and precognitions and impressions, I wanted to be able to have it available more on demand. So I did quite a bit of training with psychics and sensitives. I did energy healing, and energy healing really helped me open up very fast. And I had been fascinated by the tarot, so I studied the tarot, I did readings, and all of these things have improved my own psychic sensitivity quite a bit over the years, and it's an asset for this kind of work, most definitely.
Right, well, it's a very impressive resume you've got there, I must admit, Rosemary. Definitely.
Well, thank you.
Just like to say thank you for taking your time for talking to us.
Well, it's my pleasure, Suzanne, and I hope to visit with you again on your show.
Yes, definitely. And when your next book comes out, come on and tell us all about it.
I certainly will. We'll stay in touch. And anyone out there in the audience, I get a lot of cases and inquiries from the UK, so I'm always interested in hearing from people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll let everybody know. And as I say, if you want to join the KTPF on Facebook, then it's out there for you. I'll send you the link, and you're more than welcome to advertise on there. And we'll also put it on the website once it's sorted out. It's gone a bit AWOL today, unfortunately. A DNS problem, but it's all technicality to me. So, but yes, definitely, we'll definitely advertise you as much as we can.
Well, thank you, and I will join.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Rosemary. All the best to you for the future.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, good night.
Well, that was Rosemary, and Andy 707's just come in, which is a bit hard because I did say I was going to put her on at 9:30.
Yes, you did.
Just for him, and he wasn't here. And I don't know. So
it would have been very handy to ask some questions.
Yes, he would have done.
I mean, no disrespect to the lady, but I mean, she's making these links, and
sorry,
I don't see any actual.
There don't seem. She's saying that there's the jinn is ETs. The jinn's responsible for ghosts, Nephilim, or whatever it was, archons, reptilians. you know, even shadow people, and also alien abductions. You know, so as I say, it is.
It seems a bit of a leap.
It does. But she's done a hell of a lot of work and research, and she's, as I say, she's been connected to it and writing about it for many, many years. We're going to have to call it a day, I'm afraid, and we'll see you again next week. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, all we can say is keep the paranormal friendly. Good night and God bless. Thank you.
Everyone.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?